Hey everybody, welcome back to your Full Crew podcast. I'm Don Zoldi, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting and one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Mike Peel, your other co-host. We're going to be talking about some awesome things today, including Cruise losing its self-driving license. We're going to dive into how you could use ChatGPT to drive your drone business. We're also going to be talking about some layoffs, possibly due to AI at Stackoverflow. And then we're going to take a deep dive into potential pitfalls for personas. If you're part of a startup, you know exactly what that means. All right, and we've got some great guests to talk about these topics today. I'm going to start with Sam. Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Scully. I'm in Los Angeles. My company is Sam Scully Staffing, and my new company is Sam & Drones. And we're specializing in helping companies with their drone education. And also we specialize in helping construction companies with their reports, getting 3D modeling. And as a small business here in LA, we're certified as a veteran-owned company, woman-owned company, minority business-owned company. And we're just excited to be on the show today.
And you also have done some hosting for other Donna Drones Network shows, right? You've done a few of our clubhouses.
Yes, I have. I've been part of the Drone Law Show on Clubhouse. Started back in March with Maggie originally. Stepped off for a little while, but now I'm recently back on and look forward to being a part of the show in 2024.
Well, we're happy to have you. And we also have an amazing guest who is on our, I believe, Donna Drone podcast, Vladis Aerospace Above and Beyond series guest. And I'm sure if you're going to have to consolidate what that amazing interview was into 3 sentences right now. So go ahead, Eno.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It was great to be back for sure. My name is Eno, and joining you all from Lagos, Nigeria, and yeah, just happy to be here. Drone entrepreneur. I got into the industry in 2015. First on the commercial side of drones, and then segued into training and consultation, and have really focused on there over the years. And now I help drone businesses understand how to grow and scale and create better content. And really, it's just great to be evolving, with the industry as well. And so excited to be here to talk about all these amazing stories and how we can help drone entrepreneurs grow as well. So thanks for having me.
Yes, and I'd like to commend our audience to go check out that episode. He really is underselling some of the great work he has done in the industry. So let's start with our first article. Here we go. It's Dawn's today. She's going to kick us off with GM's Cruise loses its self-driving license.
All right.
So what happened here?
Well, first of all, I got to say, if you follow me, you probably noticed Monday I said we're going to talk about these hydrogen hubs the Biden administration is going to be putting out there. Honestly, interesting. I scrubbed that because holy shnikes, this just happened. And we had talked about this before, how San Francisco gave Cruise, which is a GM company, this license to operate their vehicles autonomously all across San Francisco, which was super exciting. And then there's been a series of accidents. The latest one, 4 to be exact, the latest one on October 2nd, where another driver in a manned vehicle hit a pedestrian. This pedestrian kind of bounced. The Cruise vehicle tried to stop, couldn't, hits the pedestrian, then with its autonomous system that it has to have on board and 40 cameras, it starts kind of backing up to park, and in doing so drags the pedestrian 20 feet. They literally had to get the jaws of life to get this woman out from underneath the vehicle. She sustained several traumatic injuries, was carted off in an ambulance. I don't know how she's doing right now, but what a horror story. And then to make it worse, at least according to the California DMV, Cruise allegedly did not give the DMV the video of the woman being dragged until 9 days later. Now, Cruise disputes this, says it was like the next day. Who knows? I guess it'll all shake out. But the bottom line is Cruise's ability to drive autonomously right now is suspended, and they can still drive the vehicles, but they have to have that driver in the driver's seat, even if the car's in autonomous mode. So that's kind of where they are, and very significant setback, I'd say, for the autonomous vehicle excuse me, industry. Still the crud from Vegas from last week. Somebody else take over.
Mike, you're muted.
You are muted, my friend.
Don, all I can say is it sounds like a horrible story. Mike, go on, please.
No. It's okay. I was just going to pass the mic to you anyway.
Yeah, so Don, one of my questions is, if you're okay to talk again, there's no system on these new autonomous cars to provide life support or to send out some information to an EMT team or the fire department or police department when something has impounded with the car or impacted the car at all?
You know, Sam, that's a great question. I don't know that there's direct line to emergency response, but clearly emergency response got a call. They did respond. The concern here was that in having certain systems on board that frankly are required by the law, those same exact systems that are built for safety actually endangered this person's life. So, I mean, is that on the regulators, which by the way, very limited regulation in this particular arena? Or, you know, is that on crews? And time will tell. You know, but what's really frightening, you know, when you think about the drone industry, and I know Eno, you know, Mike, Sam, we're all in that space, how hyper vigilant and slow the regulations are for safety reasons. You know, whereas in the autonomous vehicles, you know, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration hasn't put much out. Certain states have, but that's about it, you know? So you see, I mean, some of these trucks are driving long distances, you know, sometimes cross state, sometimes interstate. And then you have these driving around. I don't know. I think there's a lot more likelihood of getting having an accident on the ground than in the air. And I think it's an interesting contrast. What do you think, Eno?
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, you know, we need to ask ourselves, right? These technologies that we're advancing, is it necessary, right? If it's just for leisure and just to, for novelty's sake, right? That's one thing to consider. But to the point where, yeah, it's interfering with lives, at stake. And I believe before now, there's actually been someone that's been killed, by one of these autonomous, vehicles as well. So it really, bears that question. What is the purpose of this, right? Is it just to say, hey, we're the first to have autonomous cars and move people around LA? Or are you actually trying to solve a big problem, that's going on? I would be more interested, like you said. I mean, we're trying to take cars off of the road, right? There's a lot of, pollution and things in the air. So that should be the attention, right? How do we make these, solutions more green instead of just, we're just having fun, so.
Yeah, there is something to that because if you don't have to pay for drivers, you're reducing some of the costs to increase the fleet size, right?
So that's like the opposite. That's like theoretically putting more cars on the road.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
And that's actually the plan, right? The idea is because these things are investments, right? So the idea would be that the investors don't have to pay drivers anymore because they could drive on their own. And then after that, well, the cost to multiply the fleet to pick up as many people as possible is easier. And therefore, since there will be more self-driving cars on the road, their belief is everything will run so much more smoothly and optimized that we can have better traffic flow. And so far, that has not panned out. And let's think about what the alternative is. Actually, we got some questions from Jonathan Daniels. I'll bring them in, so I'll be more brief than I would have been. The alternative to these systems would have been kind of an electronic roadside system for semi-smart vehicles. And that got pushed away because a lot of people in Silicon Valley said, no, we can teach these crappy machine learning algorithms. Like when they first pitched these ideas, they were really crappy. They could barely play Mario. No, dead on. And they would fail.
I can barely play Mario, but no.
you would be better. Except that's a closed system. So the idea that since these algorithms were good at that, they would be good at this in a very, very dynamic changing system. And the problem is you get into this kind of technical debt of creating so many rules and exceptions that you don't know what you're going to pitfall yourself into. And that's kind of what happened here. You fell into two places. The vehicle really doesn't know what the hell happened to it. So it's just defaulting to failure state. And secondly, the regulators have no concept of how to deal with it. So I think it was oversold that these things wouldn't have an issue like this. They were bound to have exact issues like this, because when they do fail, they don't fail like a human does. So I'm going to bring up the question from Jonathan Daniels, because we're all drone people. How do you think the cruise issue will impact the future of drones and eVTOLs? And his second question is, have you looked at the work of Missy Cummings did at NHTSA? I did not, but now I'm going to research that.
Wow. So I didn't
two big questions.
Missy Cummings was at NHTSA. If you're talking about the same one, I'm thinking of Dr. Missy Cummings, that she was teaching at Duke. She's an engineer, a former Navy pilot, a real pioneer. So I'll have to look up her work. I know I heard her speak at Duke Law a couple years back, and talking about autonomous systems, particularly with regards to lethal weapon systems in the military. The concept was the same. The idea that, a dynamic scenario is not ideal for autonomous systems. They don't, right now, they do not have that kind of consciousness to be able to respond to those situations, whether it's a drone firing a Hellfire onto the battlefield, a little kid runs in the way, or in this case, the cruise vehicle that's in this mode of I'm gonna park now, and drags a pedestrian 20 feet. So I'll look that up, Jonathan. But great question about impact on the drone industry. I'd say none, really, because I feel like we're talking apples and oranges here. Number one, the aviation industry is so highly regulated, and so we always kind of talk about how the FAA is behind the power curve here with drones, right? But look, we've had Part 107 since 2016. They've been giving a lot of exemptions. They've been building out use cases. They've been doing all of this R&D across the country and globally with people to make sure these systems are safe. And we haven't had, I mean, God willing, we haven't had anything like this. And I think when you're, in the air is so different than on the ground, which frankly is, at least right now, way more congested than our airspace. But I'd love to hear anybody else's thoughts before we move on to the next article.
I have a quick thought on that. 3D space is easier to deconflict.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I never thought about that.
Yeah, there is nuance to that, though, where the failure state can be more consequential. So failure state could be more consequential, and then also the drone actually has to deal with more data to begin with to properly navigate. So in theory, these should have been on par. In terms of whether it would actually affect us, it might affect the perception of certain regulators, but ultimately I think the institution of the FAA has more power as the expert in the room for that, and I think they're more familiar with autonomous systems on drones. They are a branch of the DOT, though, so they probably will get some notice of this, right?
Yeah, you would think there'd be a little bit of crossover, but Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my quick question would be, just as a drone pilot, I had to take the FAA 107, Part 107 exam. So for autonomous drivers, participants, is there any that you know of certifications that they have to go through so that they are informed?
That's a great point. Maybe internally in these companies, but remember, Sam, the idea is there will be no driver. And in this case, there was no driver. So there's like a person in the back seat. This thing is going. So they're not training passengers on what to do in a scenario, right? Like when you get into an Uber or a Lyft, they're not giving you a safety briefing. They're not doing it. But my memory, because I did a little bit of research on this before for an article for Inside Unmanned. This was a while ago. California in particular, I believe, has some certification requirements for the vehicle, but I'm not tracking any training requirements for personnel involved. And Sam, you raise a great issue, because it's not only, you know, the people that have expressed grave concern are the emergency responders. Because if one of these things goes up in flames, it's got a battery on board, right? Because it's electronic, it's all, and that's a whole different way to fight a fire. You can't just put water on that thing.
Gotta put sand.
So, you know, there's been actually special training across the public safety and emergency response community about that. So yeah, really interesting issues.
Yeah. Oh, there was something I was going to bring up, but Eno popped back in, so I got distracted. But in terms of what's going, oh, we got hearts in the chat. In terms of what's going on with the regulation, it's been supremely lax, because like I said, this stuff was kind of oversold. But let me take the opposite angle for just 1 second. Many people who are developing these technologies would say there's only been a couple of accidents regarding this, whereas humans kill X amount of people a year. And yeah, I hear that, but the issue is that you have to be aware that the way that these things are gonna fail is not going to be the way that humans are going to fail. So I don't think you could just give carte blanche.
Yeah, right? I don't think you'll have a drunk cruise driving, if you will. But if the system goes wacky, it could be the equivalent. I don't know. But I would love to, let's move to Eno's article, because we're going to shift now to ChatGPT. We always love to talk about AI, and Eno, you authored this article about using it to grow not only your drone business. I mean, this is relevant to really any business, I would think.
Absolutely. So, I'll go back to what I first, heard about ChatGPT, and like most, you hear about these new platforms, and of course you have to vet it out and make sure that it's serious. But once you hear more and more people talking about it, and once I started to see the applications, I was hooked, and really, I've used ChatGPT now as a personal assistant, right? That I paid $20 a month for. That helps me literally with everything that I do throughout the day. So it's not just research or writing articles, but it's more on helping you brainstorm. I've helped it use it to come up with different negotiation points and how to handle objections, right? In on a sales call and things like that. So what I'm now talking more about is how other drone entrepreneurs can use this technology. And really, Don, as you said, it's more about entrepreneurs, right? This is really topics that many of them can use. So in the article, I really just break down those ways that I'm currently using, and essentially we talk about blogs, right? Blogs are one of the first thing that I used to create, and really this is good because you're able to give your audience, right, your potential clients, more of material that they can use to build trust and bonding, like with you. Nowadays in the digital landscape, you have to have content, right, that's created, specifically targeted at your audience. And if you can now do a task that would have taken you a couple hours, right, in a matter of 20 or 30 minutes, then of course that's going to significantly improve, that rate. So marketing, blog content is huge. There actually are prompts in this article, so I'm not sure if we're able to share the link or how folks will get it, but yeah, there's some prompts that you can literally copy and paste, right in the ChatGPT. Creating, let's say, email, right? Responses to email. There's essentially you can take a message that was written, you can tell it how to style your tone, and you can say, hey, I want to sound more friendly, or I want to sound more authoritative, or I want to go against everything that they're saying, right, in this email. You can literally set aside how you want it to respond in a certain amount of way. The other thing that's interesting that I do is I ask it to assume roles, right? So instead of just saying, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to, let's say, create a content calendar for my drone company, you would say, hey, as a marketing expert of over 10 years, with over 10 years experience in digital marketing, create a content, plan for me, right? So it's able to assume this a new set of, just perspectives and persona, right? That just a normal prompt or a normal, person answering the question wouldn't be able to get to. So that's one of the tricks I use it for. And then just having a conversation with it. One of the best things I'd use it for is just learning different topics, right? You can take text from let's say a scholarly article, and you can copy and put it in the ChatGPT and say, hey, explain this to me like, like a 5-year-old, right? Or like,
I do
as yeah,
that. That's
you
one of
know,
my tricks.
exactly. So
Because I
now
have to
you
go through programming documentation, and I'm like, explain
exactly.
like I'm a fifth grader learning computer science.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and then even like, the trick of learning about copywriting, which I think is an invaluable skill that everyone should have, especially entrepreneurs. But, knowing that your content doesn't need to have, Harvard level, jargon in it, right? Most people in general read at a middle to high school grade, level, right? So if you're asking ChatGPT, hey, let's kind of use more natural language or at a slightly lower reading level, now you can mass appeal to so many more people rather than just kind of cutting it off to a certain segment. So yeah, there's all types of uses.
What are your thoughts on ChatGPT, Sam? You've used it at all or no?
Yes, I've been using it since January, but I've learned how to better use it since I've joined the Global Air Academy with Eno. And like you said, typically, how you get an email, and I know me, you emotionally respond to it, and but now before I send out that email, I run it through ChatGPT because it makes me sound politically correct, and it also takes out the emotions. So I love it as a tool, as he said, to help me copyright, and it helped me get through things that I would never have been able to get through. I would get through it, but it would take me days. But now it takes me, like you say, less than 10 minutes. And of course, I do edit the content once I do get the
Yeah.
output back. I use Grammarly, and then of course I, rewrite it. But it's definitely it's helped me with my business, and I encourage everyone to try it.
Yeah, this was the original intent of this tool, and I think a lot of people got like overzealous about it's thinking or whatever. But it really was meant to be like a creative writing tool. It could generate ideas, get you out of a locked pattern. It could help you change the voice of something from passive to active, or put it in a different tone.
Yeah.
We have
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
we, ha-
We got someone
we
in
have
the
some
audience.
comments from the chat. I want to bring them in.
Yeah, please.
So from the previous section, fire agencies are training now to account for these types of fires. That said, it isn't widely adopted yet. So that's Anthony Isla, and he's a former first responder.
Thank
and Jonathan
you.
Daniels completely agrees with you on using ChatGPT for conversations to kind of help move the ball forward, so to speak. We use it at. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to jump in. I feel like there's like a thread from this first article even to this one, because this idea of kind of having a human in the loop. I would never use ChatGPT and just call it good. Like Sam, you said, I'm rewriting it a little bit. I'm reviewing it. I think it's really dangerous when people just assume this will just do their work for them, period. Because there's still an issue with attribution. For example, if you have the advanced functionality and you say, go climb the internet and find me something on X, right? I want to write about X. It'll give you some stuff, but it won't necessarily tell you where they got it from. So I've been in that situation.
Oh, so that changed literally like today.
Oh, really?
So they added this thing in the Microsoft Edge browser called Edge Copilot.
Yeah.
Yes,
And it's based on ChatGPT, but it has attribution.
That's huge, because what I did was, this happened to me. I went in and I said, "What's your source for this?" And then
it starts making up lies like a kid.
Well, they gave me a link. They gave me a link. I went to the link and I actually confirmed that it was in there, and then I cited it, right? Because if you're gonna do this, and I'm just warning everybody out there, AI is being used by everybody, including these copyright trolls. Okay. They employ AI, they crawl through the web, they find either an image or text or something. They come at you and say, here's our website. You violated X, drop us the $250 in here. And if you keep ignoring them, guess what? They hire a law firm who sends you an official letter. I know from experience. And it's actually, and sadly, legit. In my case, it was a picture someone had given me to use. Again, kind of indicating that they had the authority, that it was their picture. Well, it wasn't. And it was an Associated Press image, which I did not know. It did not have a watermark on it, and I posted it like over a year ago, like on my website. So anyway, just be very careful, because intellectual property is a big deal, and AI is being used on the other side to find those violations.
So one of the things that we use it for, because I do marketing services for Drone Code, is we take our large videos of interviews and we boil down that transcript, throw it into ChatGPT and say, actually we use AI in two forms, right? So Adobe Premiere is creating the transcript using AI, and then we throw it into ChatGPT to summarize. And what I've found is that when you give it a huge corpus of text to reduce, it tends to do better than when you only give it a little information. So balancing that out and trying to stop yourself from doing more work to not do work, I think is also important with this tool, right? Because sometimes you're like, well, I don't want to write my first draft, so I'm going to have ChatGPT do it. And then they produce this garbage. So now you're having a full conversation with it to not write your first draft, right? So I think we're just getting used to it. Final words?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the art to this is, what they call prompt engineering. So being able to put in the right prompts, the right detailed information to get out what you want. Because I feel like most people that are using ChatGPT right now are probably putting in very bland requests and they're not getting what they want. And they're just like, oh, this thing, doesn't work. But yeah, digging into it. And then also knowing that ChatGPT is never going to give you 100% of the output that you need, right? Typically, I say I get about 60 to 70% of the way, which is pretty significant. But that last percentage is me tweaking and changing things and switching things up, because you can never just take 100% output and just post it as even if it is AI, there's still some element of your own artistic talent to it. So. But yeah, if you use it the right way, it's very impactful.
AI is a term that finally has gotten, I guess, more acceptance. But I always liked machine learning because it seems a little bit more honest. But even that is kind of a stretch for what it really is, which is just the average of corpuses of information. So it might be a more accurate average than us drawing a curve on a traditional graph. Because it could have more nuance than that, but it's still an average. So when it fails on whatever the average is. And that's what kind of happened, in our previous article that we were talking about. Yeah. It hit something that was nowhere near the average line in terms of an experience. So it really can't handle it. So now I really want to read Dr. Cummings' work, because that sounds like she was on target. So some more comments from Jonathan and Anthony. So they're in agreement in the general sense. We're going to take a short break on that. Just thank our sponsors, Rupert Claw, CSG Strategies, Aero Vigilance, and Centrix. Thank you for making this show possible so we could get this awesome info out to the people. All right. So next article is mine. Stackoverflow lays off 100 people as the AI coding boom continues. So I thought this was interesting. One, because we've been hearing that AI was going to eliminate jobs literally from the people that were pushing it to market. And what I've found is, look, we just talked about it right now. Sometimes it creates more work. Sometimes it eliminates some work. We're still figuring out how to tool it will have impact. But one of the places that it did have impact on immediately, and not for the reason you might think, was Stack Overflow, because some people trying to gain cred, because getting credit on Stack Overflow could help you in your career, was using ChatGPT to produce BS answers to questions, and a lot of them were wrong. So the moderators on Stack Overflow were getting overwhelmed. Interestingly enough, though, why these people were laid off, 28% of the staff is laid off because Stack Overflow is struggling with profitability. That's actually just every startup right now. The funding is not there like it used to be because the Fed rate is high. So apparently most of the people that were laid off were from the go-to-market sales staff. Doesn't sound like they would be too affected by AI, to be honest. But possibly because they don't think that there's a huge growth opportunity anymore as tools like Copilot evolve and get better. Now, I know from using GitHub Copilot, which is just ChatGPT in coding form, it eliminates a lot of boilerplate for me, and not necessarily me needing to ask a question to it. I just don't end up having to go to Stack Overflow or the internet in the first place because the boilerplate has been produced, and that's usually where you get kind of hung up. So I think there's certain that's kind of oversold with the headline here, but it does seem like we are finally starting to see some trickle down effects from these tools coming to market. Any thoughts, questions? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in real quick. I mean, Eno just said, look, you can write blogs, you can do all kinds of things for marketing. So if they're cutting their sales and marketing, and then Sam was like, yeah, I use them to answer emails. And some of those emails could frankly be, sales emails. So, I mean, maybe there is a direct correlation. Maybe they've been able to harness the power of AI effectively with fewer people, using maybe even other kind of automated systems. Mike, you and I have been working this past year to try to automate some of our workflow and communications efforts. And that absolutely saves time. And I didn't have a person doing that. That was me. But if I had a person do it, I wouldn't need them anymore.
Well, I remember going through that process, right? So
Yeah.
like, if you haven't done that before, it's hard. You just assume like, no, a person has to be here. Like there's no way to automate it or eliminate that. And it's a discussion to figure out when it matters and when you do it. But ironically though, most of ours is rules based. We don't really use any of this at all. We tried to use it for article summaries and it's not there yet, but I think that'll be the next thing. But Sam, what do you think?
Well, my understanding of Stack Overflow. I'm sorry, there was
Little echo there. All right, I think you're good.
Okay. It's also an AI tool, or is it just a team of people using AI to send out content?
So neither. So Stack Overflow is a traditional message board where people would post a coding question and then experts would respond. And if it was the right answer, it would get upvoted. So it got flooded months ago with bad answers from ChatGPT. So it was affected on that side. But it also has been affected on the what used to be a human resource and that could only be produced by humans now has, even if it's a 10% of the time competitor, that affects their economic outlook. So they might be offloading sales staff because they can't literally get any sales out of these people that they hired.
Yeah, or like you said, maybe the sales tanked because they're giving everybody wrong answers. People are like, all right, we don't need to use you anymore.
Yeah, so they couldn't even control the product quality. Yeah, you're right. So like, because their product is now worse because of the worst alternative that's infecting their system.
It's like a huge death spiral.
Yes. Well, that was the stochastic parrots thing. So for our guests who weren't on that episode, a couple of researchers, many of them who were let go from their companies, wrote a paper on stochastic parrots, the idea that these algorithms are stupid and they just repeat stupid things over and over. And now they're about to flood the zone with bad information. So that means everything on the internet was more trustworthy before 2021. Now that these things are now the human centipede of garbage, information garbage. So here we go.
I got to say this. I love Deion Sanders, it's hot garbage.
Yeah. Well, I know, that's an interesting thing. Like how many of us have now in the last couple of months interacted with increasingly good scams? And like we're calling each other. Do you think
I want to hear Eno here, but I just literally called Mike Just 2 days ago, I got a DM through Meta, a Messenger. And it looked very official. It had like the DM logo and everything. Is this whole thing about somehow they're going to completely shut down my business Facebook page because I violated their trademark. And then they gave me a link to click. And I'm thinking, look, having been in the military, Sam, you can attest as you're a veteran, Navy veteran. The training we get, like, right, the OPSEC and IT security is like, never click on that link. So I called Mike. I'm like, do you think this is legit? And he's just like, no, usually that's a huge escalation. Usually they give you a warning like, hey, you're using our trademark. You need to stop doing that. Or next time we will shut you down. So I ignored it. And so far so good, but who the hell knows? We'll see. I'll keep you posted.
Well, I've had family members get calls from their bank, but then their bank is asking them to verify personal information. Because their account is under threat. And it's like, okay, how do you resolve that without calling the bank yourself now? You got to find the number and then, or going in person. So it's just getting weird out there sometimes.
Mine would be American Express. I got a text, email that says someone was using my card, call this number. And I did call. Because I was like, I'm not going to give you my social, and because I didn't believe them, but it was American Express.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it really was. Yeah.
It really was. But because they asked for my social security number, I said, I'm not sure if I want to have my account validated by that.
That happened when I was in Colombia. My card got stopped, and I was like, well, I need that to survive right now. And they called me, and I was like,
company that your credit card people know.
Yeah, well, but they should have known because the flight was booked on them, and they usually know because of that. But I think like it was like the area that it was being used. They just saw me walk too far in one day. I don't know.
Huh.
Or sometimes if you double swipe a card, like at a gas pump, that'll trigger a fraud alert.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there's weird things like that. And like this is the environment we're now in, is like we're moving towards zero trust, and I honestly don't think that that's necessarily good. So I think there's going to be some, if Silicon Valley really wants to invest in people, which I'm not sure about right now, but just in making the world actually better, they need to increase cybersecurity over the next. Cybersecurity and privacy. We need to go against the grain. There's a great book out. I haven't read it yet, but I listened to the author the other day. Your Face Belongs to Us. And it has to do with basically web scraping by an identity company used by police. I think it was Clearview. And Dawn and I mean, we're on public broadcast a lot. There's plenty of information to train an AI off of our voice, off of our face. Mm-hmm. And as these things get better, like, do we just create a world now where we have to be afraid to be public? And I think Stackoverflow was basically, just to bring it full circle, was facing like, I have an identity crisis for my business now. I don't even know how to operate in this environment where I can't validate the information. And that might dramatically affect their business ability to continue. Anyway, so happier thoughts, or at least I think.
I don't think Eno's chimed in. He might be frozen. I'm not sure, but I think
we could hear you. So
okay, all right. So yeah, sorry, frozen. But I was going to say, in all this, I tend to think of the opportunity, right? That's at hand, and I honestly think when it comes to learning, when it comes to starting a business, when it comes to being able to build something with so much ease, I mean, this really is the best time to venture out, to start something. So these people that are losing jobs and losing opportunities, it's also an opportunity for you to venture into something, right? The more skills you have, the more you can open up for yourself. And like they say, I mean, AI is really not about AI replacing people. It's the people who are using AI that's going to replace those people. So it's a huge opportunity. I think of this, and I guess I'm only so but it's like the when computers came, right, when the internet came around, this seems like such a big time in history with this introduction of this use of AI. Really seems like a big opportunity. So
Yeah, definitely. To close out on that, the answer isn't going to be no AI to whatever the issues that AI is producing right now, because the only way to combat some of the negative effects is to really use these tools to create ways to protect people. And that's where I think the actual opportunity is, right? Right now, we're seeing a land grab, which is usually what happens. But the benefit is if you really do have a good idea, you have all the tools available to you today. And I'll give you a perfect example outside of tech. Somebody just shot a motion picture, like a 90 million motion picture, but the camera system was only $10,000. That's how good our technology is today.
Well, I mean, like, according to Apple's commercial, their Apple iPhone 15 shoots Olivia Rodrigo's music videos. So there you have it.
I don't know. I kind of like but no, but to the point Eno is making, like, if you really have a passionate idea, people are connecting with other people in this environment more than ever. So use these tools to put yourself out there, and you'll get rewarded for that. All right, final article. We're going to be talking about personas, and I thought this was really interesting, Sam. So tell us why you picked this one.
I first picked it. The founder of this particular company was the first person who told me about ChatGPT back last, I think, November or December. And I didn't listen as well. But I did finally start to listen back in January. And I feel like this is kind of like a marriage here, because the founder, Akila Kamari, like I say, taught me about ChatGPT. And then, of course, now I'm with Eno learning more about ChatGPT. And so when I discovered her blog about creating personas, I realized that this was another tool that I could take advantage of, and especially since I was going to be on the show. And Don pointed out to me, she go, well, find an interesting article around AI, technology, or drones that you wanted to discuss. And so I went back into my notes and I said, oh, personas. Because a persona for me, as a marketing person and a small business owner, I want to know more about my clients. I don't want to assume that I think I know. So her tool was kind of like, for me, it's a strategy. It's a strategy for me to get to know my client so that I don't oversimplify, I don't exclude, I don't have biases, and I don't have market limitations. Because like I say, as I start to think about my market, now my new market is construction companies. Do I really know construction companies? I know it from the outside looking in. My dad worked in construction. My brother is like a construction engineer. But from a market point of view, for providing my drone services, I was like, well, who really is my customer? And so I reached out to Akila, and she says, well, hey, what about my tool? And her tool was able to basically take my industry, kind of like you all said earlier about ChatGPT and using prompts. Enter in, oh, Sam wants to look for construction companies in the LA area who are looking for disabled veteran companies, minority-owned business customers. So we put all these details in, and I was able to get a report. And in this report, I was able to get a better idea of what my customers' pain points were, what my customer likes. This particular persona she did for me, I call Mike. My persona like to go hiking, like to go biking. So when I have a conversation with this client, I now have a few more details instead of just assuming I know what a construction manager is, a project manager is in that particular area. So that was the first reason I selected it, with all those details. And secondly, because Akila too, she's a veteran of the United States Marine. And so I'm a supporter of other female veteran business owners. So I thought this would be a good time for me to support her new product. And also it's a tool that's helping me, because again, as a part of Eno's Academy, some of the things that we are tasked to do is basically kind of rebuild ourselves, rebuild our image, and find out exactly who is your target market, so you don't spend time going to conferences that are not relevant to you, going to webinars, because we all do it, that are not relevant to you, or going to networking events. Now I have a better idea what type of customer I want to market to. The persona has helped me, like I say, figure out exactly who targeted, so I can stop wasting time and wasting money. And that would be the second reason. For people who have not used them before, I had not used personas before to help me define my business, but now I feel a lot more, and I will say a little bit. I feel a lot more confident about going after my audience, and I also feel a lot more confident about where I'm going to be spending most of my time in 2024, because I have a better, like I say, I have a representation of my client through the personas she created with me using her AI generated tool.
Very cool.
Yeah. If I can add on, add on to that. Really, yes, Sam, you hit it right on the head. The importance of knowing your target market and knowing their pain points, and being able to speak, to those pain points. So AI can help you figure that out at a much quicker rate. And this all goes into, what we've known is all of us, in the drone industry, we're coming from very technical backgrounds, right? There may be a very small percent that even went to
Right.
marketing or know about sales funnels, right? So this is new to a lot of us. So what I saw, definitely was a need, for more of this. So there's one thing that the drone entrepreneur take away, and just entrepreneurs in general from this article, is know who your target market is, where they associate themselves, how old your prototypical client is, right? There's certain demographics, and if you can pinpoint all those things, create a persona of your client, then yeah, you're not going to waste time marketing on platforms that they just aren't located. So.
I have a question for Sam. I've never used personas. So how does, because I think a big criticism of AI is that depending on how it's built, right, there could be biases built in. And this article does address, the biases, oversimplification, assumptions, excluding entire groups, market limitations. How is that like addressed in the Personify platform? And like other AI things that we've been talking about all day long, do you still, as the human, have to go in behind it and validate that? In other words, would it be super embarrassing if you met Mark, that was his name, and the dude doesn't hike or bike or whatever the hell you thought he was doing? It's probably because there's some pictures on Facebook or some crap, and maybe he went one time. Maybe that's not his thing. So I guess my first question is, how does this platform address those risks of bias and oversimplification, etc.? Number one. And number two, do you still as a human need to go in and validate, despite, like we have been talking about all day?
To my understanding, this particular tool is going to be using a conglomeration of different research, history, market information, the kind of stuff that we would typically spend hours and days and money on acquiring ourselves. So my understanding that this particular tool that they are, finalizing, this AI tool, is they're bringing in those things into perspective, so they can help us build the proper psychographics. Like you say, who exactly is Mike, the behavior pattern, based on the details too that I have also provided her about myself, about my company, and about my offering, what I'm offering to that. So based on that information, again, very much like ChatGPT, the more information you give it, the more information it's going to be able to kind of bring your niche together, give you the type of environment Mike works in. Mike, let's say he works downtown. I'm just reading my notes here. He's a busy construction person. He's working in a high-rise building, or he might be working on site. Mike is also, what solutions have he used in the past? It's telling me that probably in the past he used still photographs taken by field engineers. And that might be true. Hopefully it is. It also gave me some input about, I think they're called KPIs, key performance indicators. Mike needs to stay within budget. He wants to stay on top of, the newest software. And also, he's that person who also has the buying manager's ear. So they can say, from my understanding, based on the tools that I would have used, all the money I would have used to put this all together, this particular tool, Personified, is doing it all for me based on the feedback I gave them. The more
Very cool.
feedback I give them, I think it can help me kind of massage and get to the right person I want to speak to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I got some comment. Oh no, you go first, and then we'll do some comments from the chat.
Okay,
yeah.
I was gonna say, we're in this age of social selling, right? So the traditional way of just mass, cold emailing and blasting people with messages, that's out, right? You have to actually connect with folks. There's a tool, I think it's called Humanic.ai, but basically it actually scans your potential client's LinkedIn page. It looks for all the posts that they've posted, all the articles that they posted as well, and it actually creates a persona for that person. So all right, this person is more authoritative, or they're more of a social kind of thinker, right? So that actually helps you when you go into these meetings to know. So it's sort of along the same lines of Sam, but this is a tool that actually scans the person's LinkedIn page, which I think is pretty fascinating, right? To go back and see everything that I've posted and be able to know, hey, this is the type of person that this is. So that's kind of where we're moving with all this.
Interesting.
Yeah, so some comments from the chat. Anthony Islet, interesting. AI is AI the next massive tech change that affects society? I guess broadly you could say yes. I think that the issue is the term gets just applied to everything now.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, clearly what we're seeing is an advancement in computation, and also next to that, a new tool that makes that even kind of easier to create content, create code. So yeah, it's kind of like if Steve Jobs said a computer is a bicycle for the mind, this is a bicycle on a ramp now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then Anthony Isla, work on your 30, 60, 90s. Who knows what that means? It seems like
30, 60, 90 planning.
I don't know. Maybe he'll respond, but it seems like one of those. How do you manage your time?
I think Eno's jumping in.
Oh, what do you got?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that related to content or?
30, 60, 90 from my military experience is, like you said, Sam, it's planning. What's your kind of near in target? What are you doing 60 days out, 90 days out? I don't know. But I guess maybe. But anyway, you could jump in the chat again and let us know.
Well, yeah, feel free to let us know.
Mike, I would say that for me, but my just interpreting what he said, 30, 60, 90, I too am thinking about planning, and with using the Personify application, as I am planning the kind of things I'm going to release on LinkedIn, the kind of things I'm going to post on my Instagram. That is my plan. Between my first 30 days was to figure out who the heck was I selling to, who is my audience, what people do I want, what professionals do I want to interact with in the construction industry. And then the next, the 60 days to get this all within a plan, how I'm going to provide content. Because I know Eno said earlier, we want to have content that's relevant to the people we're trying to talk to. Construction people, they don't want to hear about, let's just say,
beyond visual line of sight, like rules, like they don't care. They want to know, like, how's this going to help?
They can give a card. Exactly. So I want to talk to things relevant to the construction. And then, like you said, the last 90 days, hopefully by the last 90 days, I have put out my content and I've gotten some response from this industry. And I'm also a little bit more well-rounded, because as a professional, yeah, I'm going to be using Personify. Yeah, I'm going to be using ChatGPT, but I still have to get out there to know my audience, speak to my audience, and present to my audience. And so that means that I'm going to have to still delve into this new industry and find out more about them.
Yep.
So I hope to
Yeah,
accomplish that within the 30, 60, 90.
yeah, it certainly helps with preparation, right? And planning and I mean, it's scary putting yourself out there for your business, right? That's the big fear that everybody has to overcome.
I
That's
mean,
why Dawn does sales and not me.
well, and look, you know, having as a trained attorney, having been in the courtroom as a litigator, you know, it's know your audience. So, I mean, we used to, in some cases, hire a forensic psychologist to basically help us, like, it not profile, that's the wrong word, like, I don't want to sound inappropriate here, but like go through the jury questionnaires and kind of give us some insights, almost like a persona, if you will, Sam, of all right, well, this person's this you know, this gender, this race, this many kids, this education, you know, this occupation, you know, so generally speaking, you know, if you did a research on like what is a persona of like this type, this archetype, it's going to pop up like, all right, they're going to be hyper conservative, or you know, they're going to be very pro government. You know, it's like, yeah, as a prosecutor, that's what I want on my, you know, whatever. So yeah, I mean, this I could see having use in the courtroom and in a whole lot of other arenas as well. So really interesting stuff. Thanks for you taught me something, but the golden rule is always know your audience.
Yeah, well, you know what I find interesting about this tool is it plays into one of the things that we've been saying a lot, which is generalized AI or general tools that take general information in AI tend to produce worse results than if you niche down into a specific work category and format. So it makes sense that if you're using this tool for this use, it's going to give you enough, and it's going to organize the information in a way that it's easy to actually trust or easier to verify and use. Same thing with GitHub Copilot. The other thing I really thought was interesting in the article, because I faced it when I was doing, you know, marketing director work, is how to make sure you're not injecting bias into the process. Because I would often see sometimes even the one example that came up more than once was over genderization of a specific person for the type of product we were selling. I mean, we're selling access to a conference and information, right? So we're more actually concerned with the person's business than that, because that's going to drive their economic incentives. But when did we use it in a genderized way? Was when we're trying to get more female attendees to the show and make sure that we could provide a space for them to, or a platform for them to actually connect and thrive. So I think that's one of the pitfalls that early AI tools that were used sometimes in HR would block people from getting hired because they would go by names. You know, they would go by, you know, which college you graduated from rather than the accolades you've earned in your career.
Yeah, I mean,
because
she does staffing. I mean, she knows this. I mean, you're absolutely right. Even the Air Force at one point on promotion boards, they got rid of the picture, not the Army. They always want to see people are fit. But you know, they got rid of the picture with this idea that, well, that'll decrease bias, right? But like you said, if it's your name could be very ethnic sounding, and you could be nothing like, you know, I've seen you know, like African American folks like that have a very Irish last name. You know what I mean? Or conversely, you know, so you know, like just taking a picture away doesn't do it. And you know, just the bias is hard to beat. And like you said, Sam, even just what you're putting in, you know, anybody inputting anything into any system, including AI, when you're trying to get good output, you have to be very conscious of what you're putting in there, and could it skew the output in some way.
Yeah, I really love that they addressed it. We do have to close off on that point. So I want to thank Sam and Eno for coming on the show and providing some great insights and articles. I want to thank our audience for the participation today. Anthony, I didn't get to all of your comments. Sales projections is what he said 30, 60, 90s were 100% planning. All right. I want to thank also Jonathan Daniels for participating, and our sponsors, CSG Strategies, Aerovigilance, Rubric Law, and Centrix. Dawn, what's coming up?
A lot coming up. In fact, today, stay tuned. We've got our Drone Law Connections. I think Sam might join us in that room. It'll be hosted by Maggie Schuster with Kongsberg Geospatial. So if you're into the geospatial space, we're kicking off basically dual-use technologies called Crossover Tech with their business development manager, Adam Robinson. He'll be on the Dawn of Drones next Wednesday. Speaking of audiences, everybody, fun fact, next Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, PBS special Drones and eVTOLs. I am hosting it. And when you watch it, and I hope you do, get all your friends and relatives to watch it. Why? Because the audience I was speaking to is not you, by the way. You guys are experts. I'm speaking to the general public. So when you see me on this, don't laugh, because I really dumb it down and I'm a real cheerleader, and it's a little bit different from a persona standpoint. But I hope you guys will like it and hope you get to watch it. It's on Rocky Mountain PBS, and follow me on social. I'll be posting up those links.
Well, thank you everybody again. That's all we have for this week. We are out here.